All of the gear that I'm using on this backpacking trip cost just over $300 all in. Most of the gear is from an online store called Temu, which strives to offer the most affordable quality products. While I can confirm that the gear is affordable, I'm on this overnight trip in order to try and test whether their claims of quality are true or not. And while Temu is sponsoring this video, I'm gonna be 100% honest with you guys about what I think about the products and Temu, because your trust is way more important to me than any brand sponsorship. So let's hit the trail and see whether we have some amazing deals or a whole bunch of busts. I'm gonna be hiking 15 kilometers today, which should be a good test for the pack. It only costs $40, so I'm not expecting it to perform like a $200 or $300 pack, but I do wanna see if it just holds together for the entire trip and whether it carries the 35 pounds that I have in it comfortably during that period. I have noticed something already that's probably gonna bug me for the rest of the trip, and that's that the side water bottle pockets are not really conducive with being able to reach back, grab the water easily, and then put the water back afterwards. I have been working on my shoulder flexibility, so it wasn't too bad, but for people out there who have short arms or have bad shoulder flexibility, you're probably gonna wanna stick away from this pack or use a water bladder. It's also obvious that this pack is too short for my torso length, so it's probably better for someone with a 14 to 16 inch long torso. But something that I encountered on Temu is that a lot of the packs, they don't have adjustability or different sizes, so you kind of get what you get. That being said, I'm making it work, and we'll have to see once we get to camp whether using a pack that's a bit too small for me causes too much pain kind of through my shoulders and traps. When Temu first reached out, I was a little bit hesitant to make this sponsored video, but I got pretty excited about it once I thought about it, because it's easy for me to get caught up in the latest and greatest, fanciest gear. And I try to remember when I started, when I was borrowing uncomfortable packs and leaky tents. So if there's a way to find affordable gear that's quality, then I'm all for that, and Temu definitely has that potential. There is so much gear on Temu that it took me hours just to find the gear that I'm using on this trip. So if you want to join me in trying to find the best gear for backpacking that's on Temu, then download the app at the link in the video description. You can use code Justin100 for some coupons or something. I'm not really sure what that gets you. But then once you're searching, if you find something, comment below and I'll add it to a running list in the video description and a pinned comment so that we can share with each other all of the gear that we find that's affordable and quality. Make sure it's quality, because there's a lot of stuff on there that seems like it might be junk, and that's why trips like this, where I'm testing the gear out for you guys, are important. I've made it to the halfway point, and there's this lovely bench right here. So I'm gonna take a load off and replenish water. I'm also gonna filter some water. I brought a filter even though I'm in the desert and there's not water to be seen anywhere, just to test it out, because it was only $9 for this filter, which is a crazy deal, and it's super tiny and light. So I'm curious to see whether it can filter effectively and quickly. So this is the filter, and this is the bag that comes with it. Like I said, only $9. Both the bag and the filter are very tiny. The bag only holds about 500 milliliters of water. For that reason, it doesn't filter super quickly. It is gonna filter water and get rid of bacteria and protozoa. It uses the same sort of hollow membrane filter system that you see in other brands, but because it's so tiny and doesn't have as much surface area for the filter membranes, it filters a lot more slowly. This is the tiny one. They do make a larger version that you can buy through Temu as well, and that's probably gonna filter quite a bit quicker. If you don't want to use the little bag that comes with the filter, it does seem not the best. The filter does have threads on it that makes it compatible with both Canuck bags as well as things like smart water bottles. I'm also excited to test out my camp gear, maybe a little bit afraid as well. I have a sleeping bag from Temu, my entire cook system is from Temu, a trowel for my morning poop, and then probably one of the ones I'm most excited about, it's an ultra light flashlight, only weighs 12 grams and only costs $5. So once we get to camp, we'll run through all of that. But this isn't my first time using Temu. I bought some like foot bags in order to try and act as vapor barriers off of them because they're about a fifth or maybe even a tenth of the price of anywhere else. And I was able to get them with free shipping and then free returns for 90 days, which is pretty awesome. And the shipping only took about 12 days to get here, which is pretty crazy considering most of the stuff at Temu is coming from China. So let's hike out the rest of this trail, get to camp, and we'll test out some more gear. I made it to a spot where I want to set up camp for tonight. It's up on a ridge, high elevation, so it's going to get cold, well below freezing tonight, which would be a really good test of my sleep system. I have a good view of Vegas just back there, so maybe after this trip I'll go catch a Garth Brooks concert or maybe watch a good old hockey game. I don't have a tent or a sleeping pad from Temu because the options for those products in Canada is not great. If you're in the US or other parts of the world, then you can actually pick up pretty good looking tents and sleeping pads. And I'm hoping down the road, maybe I can pick those up and get them shipped up to Canada so I can test them out for you guys. But what I do have is a sleeping bag and a pillow from Temu that I'm excited to test out tonight. The pillow is very similar to a common pillow that I talk about on the channel a lot. It's a lightweight pillow with a pad strap, super comfortable, highly recommend the pillow, but it's at a fraction of the price as what it would cost somewhere else. Just make sure that the ones you're looking at Temu have pad straps. Some of them look like they have pad straps, but then they don't once you look at some of the pictures, so keep that in mind. The sleeping bag only costs $85, which is pretty crazy for a sleeping bag that uses down fill. Usually you'd be paying that for a synthetic fill sleeping bag, and because it uses down, it's fairly lightweight at just over a kilogram for a -3 comfort rating. All those specs make sense, so I believe that it is designed to be a -3 comfort rating, but what I am a little bit wary of, and what has me a little bit worried for tonight, because I'm pretty sure it's going to get down to about -4, -5 degrees Celsius, is that it doesn't have enough loft. So the baffles aren't made tall enough in order to accommodate all the down that's inside of there. Because of that, the sleeping bag looks a little flat. Even when I let it kind of loft up at home, it still looked flatter than I would have liked for a -3 comfort rating. But we're gonna have to put it to the test tonight and see how it performs. My other main piece of insulation from Temu is this synthetic insulated jacket. The fit is way off. This is way too big for me. I went by their sizing chart, so just keep that in mind with clothing, things like jackets. It might be a little bit off from fit, but luckily, like I said, you have 90 days for free returns, which is pretty good. In Canada, again, I ran into the issue that there's not really good down jacket options, so this one's pretty heavy. But if you are in the US, then there's a lot of really good down options for around like $30, $40. Definitely go check those out. It's still a little bit early for dinner. I hiked a little bit faster than I thought I was going to, so we're gonna have to wait to get into the cook system that I picked up from Temu, all for about under $10, which is kind of crazy. But let's recap how the pack did today, because it had some things that did really well and I was kind of surprised about, and then some things that have me a little bit worried. Let's start with what was good about the pack. First of all, I was pretty surprised in how comfortable I was carrying the pack, even though it had 35 pounds in it and my torso is a bit too long. I am used to carrying frameless packs without hip belts, so having that extra pressure on my shoulders wasn't that big of an issue. And the shoulder straps are nice and wide, so I was able to distribute that weight pretty well. The pack doesn't have a frame, so you're not gonna be transferring that much weight to your hips anyways. So just keep that in mind. You're probably gonna be maxing out at 30, 35 pounds for kind of the average person. And if you're not used to carrying packs, then you'll probably wanna keep your pack weight under that. The water bottle pockets, not as bad as I initially thought. I was able to reach back, kind of push the water bottle up, grab it, and then I was able to put it back with no problems. The pack is advertised as being 60 liters. That's super generous. I'd probably put it at closer to 40. I had to pack my tent on the outside of the pack, which is something that I don't normally do with a 60-liter pack. The pack has a ton of pockets. I really liked having a big brain up here. The hip belt pockets were okay, but we'll get into that in a second here. And overall, the straps were fine and didn't loosen up over the course of the day. That brings us to the things that I didn't really like about this pack. First of all, the hip belt pockets, super tiny, and not having a frame isn't great for transferring weight to the hip belt. So that's just something to keep in mind with this pack. The tent is pretty bulky, so it would have had troubles fitting in some of my standard 60 liter packs. But like I said, this is probably closer to a 40 liter pack. So just keep that in mind with this pack. I'm not sure how other packs on Temu stack up. The other thing is durability. This pack, it's not gonna last you an entire through hike. If you go out backpacking 3 or 4 times a year, then it'll last you a few years probably. And if you only get out for 1 or 2 trips, then it's gonna last you quite a while. But for someone like me who's getting out for like 50 trips a year, then this pack would probably get beat up pretty quickly. I already have some issues on the front pocket here where I kind of ripped it a little bit by overstuffing it. So you don't want to be overstuffing this pack, putting a lot of weight in it, and then just kind of like chucking it downhill. So those are the major pros and cons with this pack. I do know that it's going to be a pack that mostly beginners are going to be looking at. So because of that, I do want to mention that there is a sleeve on the inside for putting a hydration bladder, and then a hole that you can run the hose out to, and then a little clip here on the shoulder for the hose of the hydration bladder. That being said, I do recommend trying to get into using water bottles. They're just usually a little bit more convenient, and you can filter water into them a lot easier when you do have a full pack. So do I think you should buy this pack? For someone who's seriously into backpacking and you're gonna get on a lot of trips, this pack probably isn't for you. But if you're wanting to test out backpacking, you're not sure if you're gonna like it or not, then this is a good entry level pack that is gonna kind of let you dabble your toes into the pool of backpacking without a huge financial commitment. I'm gonna hang out, let the sun set a little bit more, and then I'll start dinner going and show you my cook system. The temperature's already starting to go down, so it's time to make my meal. Like I said, this entire cook system costs under $10, which is kind of mind-blowing because I've seen similar pot stove combos out there before, and they're usually around like $15, $20. So we have this nice pot with the foldable handle, which is really nice. And then we have a stove that, if you've looked at affordable stoves out there before, then you've probably seen this one. It has a piezo igniter, which kind of works, not all the time, but I've tested a very similar stove very extensively, and it is fairly reliable. It puts out enough flame to boil water at a decent speed. It doesn't waste a ton of fuel, and just generally works. So I know that we're getting a good deal with the stove. And then with the pot, it's an aluminum pot, so it's not the lightest pot out there compared to like some titanium pots, but it has markings on the inside, so you can just pour the amount of water that you need if you're eating a freeze-dried meal. This pot is 1.5 liters, so it's gonna be big enough for 2 people to boil water, maybe have a hot beverage, or you could cook inside of it too. It's big enough for that. Let's get some water inside the pot and start cooking. We got a boil. There we go. This nice little pot grabber is nice on top, just a little silicone tab there. Pour the water into my meal here. And then I have this titanium long handle spoon that I picked up on Temu as well. Like I said, the stove, the pot, and the spoon, all under $10. I think the spoon was like $3.50 or something like that. Pretty crazy, considering how much they cost other places. So we're gonna let that rehydrate and then have a good dinner. Yeah, the stove performed as well as I expected. It's not the most stable stove because it doesn't have a very wide base, so you don't want to be filling up this entire pot probably, maybe about 1 liter in order to have it stable. But it boiled the water quickly, and other than being pretty loud, no complaints. The pot is actually probably my biggest surprise out of everything in here. It has the nice silicone handle, has the lid, the clear lid with the tab on it, has a strainer on the lid. Really nice pot system. The one thing that I know some people are gonna be concerned about is the coating and the aluminum getting into the water, but I've looked into that a little bit, and it's not something that really is that big of an issue. So something to keep in mind, but not something that I'm worried about. I'm just gonna have a pretty chill evening hanging out, but tomorrow morning I'll let you guys know how the sleeping bag performs, because at $85, if it performs below freezing, I'll be super impressed, and it'll be one of the best deals out of all of the gear that we talked about today. I did tease this little teeny tiny flashlight, and I'll talk about that right now. It's very similar to some other flashlights that you've seen on this channel. It only weighs 12 grams and uses USB-C in order to charge it, so it is rechargeable. I think where it's compromising is probably battery life and how bright the light is. For 12 grams and $5, you're not gonna be getting a huge battery in here, and you're probably not gonna be getting a ton of lumens out of it, but it's gonna be enough in order to light up around camp, maybe cook if you're going to camp late, or do some things inside of your tent. Hopefully none of my family and friends who backpack are watching this video because they probably know what they're gonna be getting for Christmas and birthdays from now on. All right, good night, and we'll see you in the morning. Good morning. I slept pretty good last night. Temperatures got down pretty cold. I was a little bit chilly, but I think that was mostly because of the sleeping pad. I'm just gonna run around the tent here and grab my thermometer and see how cold it actually got. So it got down to -3 degrees, which is the comfort rating of the sleeping bag that I have inside there. And like I said, I felt pretty warm for my top insulation. It was a sleeping pad that I was using that really felt like the weak link in the entire system. I'm pretty surprised with this sleeping bag. It's advertised online at -3 comfort rating, but I'm pretty sure that's not being tested to the ASTM standard or anything like that. So I didn't have high hopes for it. If it kept me comfortable above freezing, I was gonna be pretty happy with the sleeping bag for the price, especially considering when you actually look at it, it doesn't look like it has a ton of loft to it, but the proof is in the pudding. It kept me warm last night, and the weak link was my sleeping pad, which is kind of disappointing. I also ran the flashlight last night basically at full blast until it died, and it lasted over 2 hours, about 2 hours and 20 minutes, which is pretty impressive at full power, but that full power isn't super bright, so just keep that in mind. You're gonna get decent battery life out of it, especially because it does have 3 different settings. So you can put at that lower setting and probably get about 5 or 6 hours, but you're not gonna be able to light up like 50 feet down a path. I'm gonna pack up here, enjoy some breakfast, and then head into Vegas to try and find a shower before my flight tonight. If you're browsing their site or app and find a really good deal, then make sure to comment it below so that I can add it to that running list that I talked about. And hopefully I can get Temu to sponsor another video where I test out gear from the US, because there are a lot more options down there for tents, sleeping pads, even sleeping bags and packs. And then check out this video if you want to see my recommendation for a full beginner backpacking gear list.